Okay. Hi. Welcome back. Um, I hope you've been doing good. I've been I've been okay. I almost died recently. Um, it's okay. I'm still here. I put on some lo-fi in the background cuz I didn't want to talk to myself in silence. Um, it might be kind of a long video. Uh, I wanted to talk about being in the hospital and what that was like and kind of how I've been looking at life ever since then. Um, yeah, so I guess let's just get into it. A little bit of backstory. Last summer, I had finally joined a gym. I was going pretty regularly. I was off season from Life Touch, which is currently my job. I don't work for Starbucks anymore. I'm a preschool photographer for Life Touch, which has been so much fun. Um, it's nice to be able to do a job that also involves my hobby. It can be a little tiring sometimes, like I get burnt out pretty easily. Um, but overall, it's a lot more rewarding than Starbucks was, so I can't complain. Um, I had joined the gym and was going regularly. I was building up endurance. I was dating someone at the time, um, pretty casually. I wasn't too serious about it. Um, but everything was like going well. Like I don't know. It's just crazy to think. I always look back and I feel like I was at my peak, which is probably a lie. But like physically, I was I was peaking. You know, I was like literally going to the gym for like 2 hours every time I would go. Um, but anyway, um, so I was feeling good physically, and then one day I did my shot, and I I contaminated myself. Um, so this is for all of my other trans people who buy their supplies off of Amazon. Um, I used to buy my syringes and my needles off of Amazon. And if you look, I'll try to go back and find the actual like description of the syringes that I used to buy. It literally says it's not for medical use because they're not sterile. So, um, my boyfriend at the time did a shot for me, and then the next day I started feeling like I had the flu. Like, couldn't keep anything down. I had, cold sweats. I had a fever. My fever was pretty bad too. It was like 103 or something. So of course I'm just taking like regular meds, trying to get through it. And I swear to God, I spent like 4 days just sweating, just sweating. Like I was just constantly sweating through my clothes. It was insane. Um, and then finally, one day I'd been staying over at my boyfriend's place because I didn't want to get my parents sick. And he came home from work, and I had used the bathroom, and my doo doo was really like it was black, and I knew that something was wrong. So I somehow managed to drive myself home, even though I was like borderline about to pass out most of the time. Um, Still sweating to death. Um, I got back home. I crawled inside. I was literally like dragging myself inside. And my mom was like, "You need to go to the emergency room." Um, I was like, "Yeah, okay. I give up. I can't fight this anymore. I don't know what's wrong." Like I was throwing up even though I hadn't eaten in days. You figure by the time I went to the hospital, all this started on a Saturday night / Sunday morning. I didn't go to the hospital until Wednesday. And you figure I hadn't eaten. I had tried to eat, but I couldn't keep anything down. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then I spent Thursday and Friday in the emergency room because they couldn't find a bed for me because every hospital kept denying me because of my insurance. Which is just so great to find out after the fact. But they fed me once in the emergency room. That was it. I didn't get to eat food again until I was transferred hospitals all the way out to Camden. And I was able to, like, they were just, like, ordering food for me. I was on a liquid-only diet, though. This is a lot to talk about. I haven't really, like, talked about everything in a while. This was at the end of September, by the way, which my birthday is in October, and I literally got out the day before my birthday. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I will say my boyfriend took really good care of me. He was a really great guy. I just ended up, it just didn't work out. That's all. We're on good terms. No, come back. Focus on me, please. Thank you. Oh, we're not connected anymore. That's cool. That's fine. Sorry, I was connected to my camera and now I'm not. That's fine. So I went to the emergency room. I ended up stuck there for a couple days. I remember at one point, I was so hot. Like, I could feel how hot I was. And I'd been eating ice chips, so when they took my temperature, it was reading like normal. And I kept asking for, like, an ice towel or cold compress of some type. And the nurse at the time was just kind of like, whatever. Like, I had a male nurse, and honestly, like, he was such a dick. Just totally writing me off. And I sat there for 2 hours, like, going in and out of consciousness, yelling for Megan, because she was another nurse who was really nice to me. I was just yelling for her name. Every time I would wake up, I would be, Megan, Megan, Megan. And one of these days, one of these times, she was walking past when I said her name, and she was like, "Did you call me?" And she comes in, and I'm like, "Yes, please. Oh my God, I'm so hot. I'm like dripping in sweat. Like, I cannot get cool." And they decided to do a rectal thermometer on me, which pause on the whole experience for a second. As a victim of, like, CSA, which is childhood sexual assault, it's really triggering to have to go into the hospital and you have no choice but to let them violate you, even though you don't want it. That was something that I really struggled with after I got out of the hospital. Was this overwhelming feeling of intrusion, feeling violated, feeling like I had no more control over my body, and that I also knew that I had no choice, because if I didn't, I would have died. So it's a really complicated, complex situation. But back to the story. Did a rectal thermometer, found out that I still had a fever of like 105. So they literally trucked in a bunch of ice packs. Like, I swear to God, I had 7 ice packs. I had 1 between my legs. I had 2 on each arm. I had 1 on my chest. I had like 2 on each side of my legs. Because they were just trying to cool me off. And they kind of, I remember my nurse, the male nurse that came in, he's just kind of like, well, I don't know. It's like, well, I've been telling you for the last 3 fucking hours that I'm overheating and I don't know what to do. Please get me a cold compress, and then just fucking ignoring me. Love that. Let me take a quick pause. I'm gonna go grab a coffee. So just Hello. I am back with my coffee now. Relaxing. Okay. So, where was I? Bad nurse in the hospital. Um, it's so fucked too, because at first we kind of bonded because he had a little Spider-Man thing on, and I thought I was gonna like him, but then he turned out to just totally ignore the fact that I was in the middle of dying, which was cool, I guess. Sometimes I understand being jaded in your job, but like when your job is literally to save people's lives, maybe like at least pretend that you don't fucking hate me. I don't know. So I spent 2 days in the emergency room waiting to find a hospital bed in another actual university hospital or whatever. And they finally found one, and I had to get transported via ambulance. Which, by the way, at this point, even when I was still staying at my boyfriend's place before, like, it was almost as soon as I got sick, something happened with my back, and we still don't know to this day what happened. But the longer I was sick, the less I was able to lift my right leg, and it originated at like a spot in my hip more so than my back. And the longer I spent in the hospital, the worse it got. So by the time I was transported via ambulance, I was like in so much pain, like always with my back, and I had to like sit upright in the stretcher. It was so fucking painful. And then the whole ride there was like bumpy. And then I remember in the ambulance I was like, "Do you guys have anything for pain?" And they're like, "All we have is fentanyl." I was like, I think I'm okay actually. And they were like, "It's not this scary drug that everyone thinks it is. It's just, people abuse it." And I was like, "That's fair." And honestly, I was in so much pain. I was like, "Yeah, just pop me some fentanyl, please." I'm like, fucking over it. Which, by the way, fentanyl is... I like it better than I like morphine. I had morphine while I was in the hospital, too. And morphine got me so high so quickly that I felt like I was going to vomit. But anyway, I had so many drugs while I was in the hospital. It was insane. I got transported to Cooper University Hospital in Camden, which, shout out to Cooper, because after I got out of the hospital, I got kicked off my current health plan, which was Jefferson, and I switched over to Cooper because they accept Medicaid, and they treated me well, and they saved my life. So now I'm with Cooper. But I remember getting in the hospital at night. I was so thirsty, but they were trying not to let me drink water because they needed to run tests. But then they finally let me have ice chips, and I was like, bro, I was sucking on those ice chips like I had never seen water in my life. They were really nice, really understanding. It was really hard for me to go to the bathroom because of my leg / back / hip. And they tried to get me to use this pee sucker. You stick it in between your legs and it just sucks up the pee as you pee. But I literally couldn't get myself to piss in bed because I've trained myself for 25 years not to do that. But let's see. I spent a lot of time watching cable television for the first time in years. I watched a lot of Catfish. I watched a lot of Ridiculousness. Because that was the only thing that I really liked. I'm trying to laugh. But it was a harrowing experience, the whole thing. Because eventually I got transferred out of the ICU and into, I guess, the recovery rooms. I don't know what you call them. where I had my own bathroom. Well, I guess you always have your own bathroom. I wish there was a shower. You figure I spent 2 weeks not showering, and not really being able to see the outside. The only time I saw the outside was when I was being transferred via ambulance, and that was just for a brief moment that I got to see the outside. And then when I was in the ICU, I did have windows, but the view was just the building, and it was like gloomy every day I was there. And then I finally got transferred into the normal unit or whatever it's called, and my windows were like all the way up on the ceiling pretty much, so I could only see like part of the sky and part of the building. So like that last week I spent just praying like that was the day that I would get out. Also, like every 4 or 6 hours they have to come and take your blood to run tests to make sure, one, I'm not continuing to grow bacteria in my blood, and two, to make sure that I'm, like, I guess building antibodies or white blood cells or whatever it is. I don't know. There's so much shit that they kept throwing at me, and like I didn't know what half of it meant. And then I'm trying to call my mom and like tell them what's going on. Which, by the way, my mom couldn't even come and visit me because she was getting her hip replaced this whole time, and she needed to like isolate beforehand because of COVID. Also, the hospital is like an hour away from where we live. It was rough. I spent a lot of time alone. And it wasn't anyone's fault. My boyfriend at the time drove all the way across the state of New Jersey every day to come and visit me, even if it was just for like an hour, after work, after he would get off. He brought me McDonald's. He even brought his vape pen and let me puff it a few times while I was in the hospital, which, let's fucking go. Took great care of me after I got out of the hospital too. Drove me to all my doctor's appointments. Just really, really showed up when I needed somebody. So I'll always be thankful to him for that. It's almost like he came into my life just for that, because we met and then I got sick, and then after I got out of the hospital I was so mentally in a weird place that I kind of just needed to be by myself and remember who I was and kind of re-find myself. Not the dog outside. But yeah, it was really hard after getting out of the hospital and like realizing that I actually almost died, and kind of having a new perspective on life. Like, hold on, I'm gonna close the window because that dog is annoying. Okay, we're back. Let's see if I have anything else in my notes here. Oh, the bed was really, really uncomfortable. It's basically like a big slab of metal with like a cushion this thin on it. So you're basically just sleeping on metal. And with my back being the way it was, I could only sleep on one side, really. Because I was eating so many ice chips and I was getting so many antibiotics pumped into me all the time that I had to piss so fucking bad, like every 2 hours. Like, I hadn't peed in a day every 2 hours. It was insane. So, like, even if I would actually fall asleep, I have to get up every 2 hours and struggle. Like, when I tell you the struggle of walking, again, a humbling experience. Going from feeling like I was at my peak physically to bottoming out, like literally. I was even in a wheelchair because it was easier for a little bit than walking. And the way people looked at me and treated me when I was walking with a walker or with a cane or in my wheelchair. It angered me. It angered me a lot. One of the things that really angered me about my boyfriend is he took a picture of me with my cane and then he photoshopped the cane out. And that's never sat well with me, and I never understood why he did it, because I was never ashamed to have my cane. Yeah, the world treats people with disabilities a lot differently, especially when they can see the disabilities. When they can't see them, they just pretend they don't exist. But yeah, I was out of work for a while. I had to get a different job, and that didn't work out, so then I ended up back at Life Touch anyway, which I'm happy for, because it is a pretty decent job. Pays pretty well. But yeah, that was kind of my whole experience at the hospital. I remember on the way home from the hospital, my boyfriend came in and got me, and I just got overwhelmed with emotion because I was so happy that I was finally out of the hospital. So happy to finally get out. So happy I didn't die. So happy to see the sky again. Couldn't believe I almost never saw the sky again, when that is one of my favorite things to take pictures of. We got Burger King and Chick-fil-A. And then he drove me home, and my mom had a joint rolled for me. And we all sat in my room and we smoked together. I remember walking into the door, and it took me so much. It took so much of me to get out of the car and walk into the house, because I was so weak from being in the hospital. It took me probably 5 minutes just to walk from my car to the door, and then from the door into the house to meet my mom. And my mom was like sitting all the way across from the door, like waiting for me to come up to her. She was like, "You can do it. You can do it. You got it." I built up a lot of like upper body strength during that time, because I couldn't put any weight on my leg, pretty much. Like, I couldn't put any weight on it, couldn't lift it. It was hard. It was rough. But I got through it, and I would say I'm like 95% back physically, maybe even 100. I'd like to be back where I was before I started, but I lost a lot of muscle mass in the hospital. I lost like 30 or 40 pounds while I was in the hospital too. I lost a lot of weight. I'm still smaller than I was. That's okay. This has been an emotional video a little bit. But I wanted to share that with you guys, kind of like in one place where everyone can see it. If you're watching this and you haven't seen me or talked to me in a while, this was kind of the major life event that's happened in the last year or so. I mean, it's been almost a year. It'll be a year and 3 months, 4 months. So it's been a while. But I think what I got out of it was that all the things that I am frustrated with on a daily basis didn't matter. What really mattered was my friends and my family, and who showed up, who cared, who was crying, who was upset, things like that. I really missed playing video games when I was in the hospital, especially because I had just built my PC. But I don't know, I try to remember those days when I'm having a hard day, like getting up and going to work, or just getting up on a day that I'm off and doing something with my time. Because it reminds me that I have so much at my fingertips, and it can be gone just like that. Like, no warning. Just one day, everything's really different. And for a while there, I wasn't sure if my back was going to get better. There were thoughts of, am I going to be on a walker for the rest of my life? Am I going to have to walk with a cane for the rest of my life? Am I going to be in a wheelchair? Like, I was really in a dark place for a while. But I never gave up. I kept fighting. I kept walking, no matter how hard it was. And I'm here. So if that's a lesson, if there's a lesson in there, take it. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. Anyone who's been watching me make videos for years now, like, thank you. I really enjoy making videos, and I would really like to get back to it. It's a good creative outlet for me. It's always been something that I've gravitated towards, and I hope that my depression and anxiety doesn't keep me from it. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you have a good day. And there's my goodbye. Bye bye.